In today's lesson, we're going to learn the most important rule in Chinese grammar, Chinese sentence structure. The good news is that it's much easier than many people expect. By the end of this lesson, you will know how to build a basic Chinese sentence, the Chinese sentence formula, how to use the formula as a guide to make longer sentences, and comparison between Chinese word order with English. Once you understand this lesson, you'll have the foundation for almost every grammar topic we'll cover in this series. So, let's get started. The foundation of Chinese sentences is subject plus verb plus object. This is the most common sentence pattern in Chinese. For example, 我吃苹果. Let's break it down. 我 is the subject, who is doing the action. 吃 is the verb, the action. 苹果 is the object, what receives the action. Most everyday Chinese sentences add extra information around the basic SVO structure. Here's the beginner sentence formula. Subject plus time plus place plus how plus verb plus object. For example, 我今天在学校认真地学习中文. I study Chinese diligently at school today. Let's break it down. 我 the subject. 今天 time. 在学校 place. 认真的 how. 学习 verb. 中文 object. The structure isn't always so rigid, but this formula will help you understand the word order of most beginner sentences. One important difference between Chinese and English is that Chinese often puts actions together in one sentence. For example, 我们明天要去看演唱会. We're going to watch a concert tomorrow. Let's look at the structure. 我们 subject. 明天 time. 要 want to, plan to. 去 go. 看 watch. 演唱会 concert. Chinese does not always need words like and between actions. Instead, actions can be placed together like this. 去看 go watch. 去买 go buy. 去吃 go eat. 想学 want study. 要买 plan to buy. For now, just remember, subject plus time plus 要 or 想 plus verb plus object is a very common pattern. In Chinese, we often leave out words when the meaning is already obvious from the situation. The most commonly omitted information is the subject. For example, 吃饭了吗? Have you eaten? The subject, 你, meaning you, is not included because both people already know who is being asked. A natural reply is 吃了. Yes, I ate. Here, the subject 我 meaning I and the object 饭 meaning meal are both omitted because they are already understood. Chinese does not need to repeat information that everyone already knows. You'll see this kind of omission very often in everyday conversations. Everyday Chinese speaking is much more clipped and informal compared to how you would typically learn full sentences. Chinese questions are usually built using the same sentence structure as statements. You normally don't rearrange a sentence like in English. Let's take the statement 你喜欢咖啡? You like coffee as an example. To turn it into a yes or no question, simply add 吗 to the end of a sentence, like 你喜欢咖啡吗? Do you like coffee? For WH questions, just replace the unknown information with the question word. For example, 你喜欢什么 What do you like? Or 谁喜欢咖啡 Who likes coffee? If you already speak English, you've got a head start. Both English and Chinese usually follow the same basic subject, verb, object, sentence order. We already mentioned earlier that Chinese can have multiple verbs together in one sentence without adding and between them. Also learn that Chinese questions don't rearrange words like in English. Another important difference is that Chinese verbs don't change. In English, we say, I eat, she eats, we ate. The verb changes. In Chinese, however, 我吃，他吃，我们吃了. The verb 吃 stays exactly the same. Instead of changing the verb, Chinese usually adds other words to show things like time. Now, let's see how we can make our sentences longer. Think of the subject, verb, and object as the main building blocks. Everything else simply adds more information. The time usually comes near the beginning of the sentence after the subject. A useful pattern is subject plus time plus verb plus object. For example, 我今天上班 I'm going to work today. 他明天回家 He's going home tomorrow. In Chinese, place information usually appears before the main action. A useful pattern is subject plus place plus verb plus object. For example, 我在学校学习中文 I'm studying Chinese at school. Here, 在学校 describe the location where the action happens. Chinese often use words like 在, 去, 到, 来 when talking about places. The most common one is 在. 在 plus place describes where an action happens or is happening. For example, 我在家吃饭 I'm eating at home, or I eat at home, depending on the context. Other words such as 去, 到, 来 describe movements to or arriving at a destination. The destination is often connected with an action that happens there. For example, 我去学校上课 I go to school for class. Here, 去学校 means go to school. 上课 is attend class. The action happens at the destination. Sometimes another action comes before the destination phrase. For example, 我坐地铁去学校 I take the subway to school. Here, 坐地铁 take the subway. 去学校 go to school. Chinese often combine actions like this to show how someone travels before showing where they're going. Don't worry too much about this pattern for now. We'll learn more about multiple verbs later in this series. Sometimes the action after the destination is not necessary. The destination itself completes the sentence because the meaning is already clear. For example, 我到北京了 I have arrived in Beijing. We do not need to say what happens in Beijing. The sentence is already complete because the important information is that the person has arrived. So, to summarize, 在 plus place is location where an action happens or happening. 去, 到, 来 plus place is movement towards or arriving at destination, often followed by an action, but the action may be omitted when it's unnecessary for the meaning. We'll look at this in more detail in a separate lesson in this series. When a sentence has both time and place, the usual order is subject plus time plus place plus verb plus object. For example, 我今天在家学习中文 I studied Chinese at home today. The how part of the sentence tells us how an action happens. There are many ways to do this in Chinese. For example, we can describe how someone does something. 他认真地学习. He studies diligently. Here, 认真地 diligently is used to describe the action 学习 study. We can also describe how someone travels, like 我坐地铁去学校. I take the subway to school. Or how someone does an action, like 我用筷子吃饭. I eat with chopsticks. Sometimes a sentence can contain more than one how. For example, 他常常认真地学习中文. He often studies Chinese diligently. Here, 常常 tells us how often. 认真地 tells us how he studies. Don't worry too much about these different patterns for now. The important takeaway is that this information usually comes before the verb. We'll explore this in more detail in a separate lesson. Adjectives describe nouns. Just like in English, they usually come before the noun. For example, 他有一个好习惯. He has a good habit. 我喜欢漂亮的花. I like beautiful flowers. Sometimes Chinese uses 的 between the adjective and the noun. We'll learn everything about 的 and how to use it in a separate lesson. Chinese also has words for joining ideas together. For example, 我喜欢咖啡，但是不喜欢茶. I like coffee, but I don't like tea. Here, 但是 means but and connects two contrasting ideas. There are many other words for joining ideas together, such as and, because, so, or, although, etc. We'll learn more of these joiners in a separate lesson with plenty of useful examples. In English, we often change the verb to show when an action happens. For example, I go, I went, I will go, I'm going. In Chinese, verbs do not change. Instead, Chinese adds words before or after the verb to express the same ideas. For example, 我去过中国. I have been to China. 我要去中国. I am going to China. Don't worry about what 过 or 要 mean just yet. For now, just remember that Chinese doesn't change the verb itself. Instead, it adds other words to show whether an action happened in the past, is happening now, or will happen in the future. Let's put everything together. 我今天在学校学习中文. I studied Chinese at school today. 她昨天在家看电视. She watched TV at home yesterday. 我们明天一起去北京. We'll go to Beijing together tomorrow. 他总是真诚地鼓励我. He always encouraged me sincerely. Let's see if you can build some Chinese sentences. Pause the video after each question if you'd like a little more time. Can you put these words into the correct order? The answer is 我今天学习中文. I studied Chinese today. The answer is 他在学校吃午饭. He eats lunch at school. ？The answer is 我们明天一起去北京。We'll go to Beijing together tomorrow. Bravo if you got them right. And if you didn't, I'm still proud of you for giving them a go. You've just tackled some much more complicated Chinese sentences structures, and that's a huge milestone in your learning journey. Let's quickly review what we have learned today. Chinese uses the same basic sentence structure as English, namely subject plus verb plus object. As you build longer sentences, you can use the Chinese sentence formula as a guide. Subject plus time plus place plus how plus verb plus object. Remember, not every sentence needs every part, but this formula is a great guide for building natural Chinese sentences. In future lessons, we'll take each part of this formula and explore it one step at a time. Once you have learned each piece, you'll be able to build longer, more natural Chinese sentences with confidence. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next lesson. Have a nice day.